Welcome into the Boardroom podcast. I'm Ward 6 Alderman Ben Piper.
Ward 4 Alderman Chad Wicker.
Good morning.
Ben, how you been, man?
It has been busy, brother. I'll tell you what, Memorial Day weekend, always a great time. You had a very eventful Memorial Day
It really
weekend.
It looked a lot worse than what it was.
You got to tell people what's going on in everybody's
All right,
mind.
so Shelby's aunt and uncle, they have a lake house on Bee Lake, which is in rural Holmes County, about 25 minutes from Yazoo City.
Okay.
Chula, you ever seen Chula?
I had. Is it the one that's like TCHULA? Yeah, I've seen that
essentially right there, Chula, Mississippi. Lexington is the exit you get off at.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so we were at the spending Memorial Day there at the lake house, and we had been out the day before swimming on the boat and stuff, and then the Sunday morning we were all going home that afternoon. We got up and went back on the boat one more time to take the kids, and so we went to this one area where they have a little thing you could jump off of, and there's also a zip line.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, man, somebody ought to try the zip line. So I got on there on the zip line, and I don't know, it didn't work correctly. There's the videos out there.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't really zip. I kind of just hung. So
Yeah.
I got a little. I was like, I'm just gonna let go and fall in the water. And when I let go to fall in the water, there was like a catch line to pull the string back once you zip to the end, and my arm got caught.
Yep.
In the zip line, and pretty nasty bruise. I think I may have.
It's pretty rough, folks. I'm looking at it, and it looks like
I had to get an MRI done, and so I'm waiting for the results. And
your bicep looks like an eggplant.
Yeah.
And it goes all the way down to your wrist. Holy smokes, man! That's
you
rough.
can see where it was. So we need to get a camera on the next podcast.
Does it? But you're not like in constant pain or anything.
No pain at all. Sometimes there's some moderate pain up here where I think there's. We're taking a good guess, but I think it's a possible small tear to the bicep right there. So we're waiting for the MRI to see for sure.
Well, he survived, folks. If you saw the video, it didn't look that bad in the video. It just looked like he just kind of like it just kind of hung up for.
When I initially did it, I thought I broke my wrist because my wrist swelled up really big.
Okay.
And then I was looking at my wrist, and everybody, when I got out of the boat, everybody said, "Look at his arm," So, but we had a good time. The boys, once they realized I was all right, they wanted to go back out and get pulled in. Of course.
They wanted to go on the zip line. Everybody's scared of it.
Well, my youngest one, he does front flips off the diving boards and stuff. He's one of those kids, so he drives his mother crazy with that stuff.
Well,
what y'all do? I think I saw y'all on the boat.
Yep. Send all your good vibes, prayers, and all the things to Chad's right arm because it's looking rough right now, but I'm sure it'll be better soon.
Yeah.
We went down to Sardis and got some family friends that have a little place down there, and our son caught his first fish all by himself, small little catfish, probably be a bait fish, so we didn't really hold on to it. But he was real proud of that, and just spent the day tubing and doing all that, and we had some graduation parties for some neighbors' kids that we went to, and then spent some time with family too, and just enjoying the swimming pool and all that over at Grandma's house and all the stuff. So we did. Had somebody asked me, what'd y'all grill out over the weekend? And we did like a non-traditional Memorial Day meal where like most people are doing hamburgers and hot dogs. We did chicken and shrimp fajitas, which I love me some Mexican food.
Y'all like some tacos over there.
Yeah, chicken and shrimp fajitas. So those turned out pretty good. The kids still had, some of them still had hot dogs because they weren't about the chicken and shrimp. But for the most part, it was a good time. So beautiful weekend. We're kind of catching up a little bit on our last meeting that we had at the on May 21st. So we're playing catch up here, and we're going to kind of, we can't really necessarily preview the next Board of Alderman meeting that'll be on June 4th, but we can look over our last one that we had here.
This was there's a lot of minor things on there. I think the biggest thing of consequence was the discussion about the was that Crestview subdivision. I think we spoke about that for over an hour and a half.
You want to start there, or do you want to go through some of this other stuff?
I don't think, is there anything before that we need to talk about?
Shout out Bob Barber and shout out to Bob Barber and also to Sharon Wright for completing the 128th Boston Marathon, competing in that. 2 local folks, because that's a race you can't just it's not like the, Water Tower 10K where you just show up and pay your fee or what. You got to qualify for it, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's the way it is with the Boston Marathon. So there's some of the best runners in the country and in the world competing that thing. So to have 2 people like that, we gave a little recognition to them and took a picture, and they're both in phenomenal shape, of course.
They had good times. I think both finished around 4 hours or less. That's really good for a marathon. So I think 3:45 or something like that was.
That's like as fast as a golf cart.
Yeah, and she.
I mean, that's rolling.
Yeah, she was a little behind him, I believe. So that's a very difficult. I mean, I know some people may not know runners that's a very difficult course. It's uphill towards the end. I'm trying to think what they call it, Headache Hill or something towards the end there. It's a pretty
Heartbreak Hill.
There it is. At the end there. It. And but that's it's hard to get into that race. You have to qualify by time and age, and so not just anybody can sign up and do that. So they put a lot of time training and doing that to get a time where they can qualify.
How did you do in the 5K before A-Fair?
So I finished right at 25 minutes.
There you go.
We had
rolling.
I think somebody sent me a picture. Somebody had posted on Facebook, I guess. Half the town and the fire department are running down the street or whatever, because we had the fire department. A lot of those guys participated, and they wore their turnout gear, I think is the correct term, and ran the race. And so it was great to see those guys getting out and staying healthy. But it was a good turnout, good race like always. The weather, it rained really hard, and then it finally quit and really kind of was cool enough for the race. You don't want it to be too hot for a race. And so then we had a beautiful day for the A-Fair. So
A-Fair was pretty packed. It was a good time. Touching on that really quick, lots of people came out for A-Fair. They had the bounce houses. They had, all the different arts and crafts folks. Had some really good musical acts, local musical acts, and some of them were younger kids even. So
you got a Pronto Puff? Did you get one?
I did not get a Pronto Pup. We got somebody selling like this. I guess it's gourmet. I guess I'll call it gourmet popcorn.
Okay.
Right. They got like Parmesan garlic and dill pickle flavored popcorn.
Yeah,
man, that stuff's so good. We bought like 4 or 5 bags of it, and
it's all gone.
Disappeared in no time. So, yeah, that was really good stuff. And the kids had snow cones and all the stuff. But we had a good time at it. We had a really good time. But yeah, let's jump into our meeting May 21st. Bob Barber, Sharon Wright. Congrats on a phenomenal Boston Marathon. Great achievement.
We can mention there's an item on the agenda about Lehman Roberts won the construction or run the bid on some of the paving. So we're going to see in my area, DeSoto.
Yep,
is going to be paved, and also I believe in Ward Natalie's, she's Ward 1. Memphis Street is going to be the big 2 ones that you'll see paved here soon, and then I think the next batch is going to be.
I want to say so. The Memphis Street is going specifically. I may be wrong about this, but I want to say it goes from Charleston Row all the way to Highway 51. Like it's a good.
Yeah.
It is a long stretch, and it desperately needs to be done. There's a lot of traffic on those roads. People going to drop off their kids at Connection or that Fusion baseball complex right there. You got. Laurelwood and some other neighborhoods along in there that, I don't know whether they've just been chewed up over time or whatever it is. There's no curb there, so the roads, definitely need some attention there.
Yeah. DeSoto is a pretty good long road too. So that goes from Byhalia to Parkway. So,
that's a good haul. There are more roads to be paved and things to be dealt with during the summer. Those are being put out to bid now, so we'll have another batch of streets that we'll be talking on later on in the year. We had the Crestview rezoning is probably the one thing Chad kind of mentioned earlier that was a big part of the meeting. So the Crestview subdivision, it was a request to go from agricultural to a PUD or a planned urban development. And this was one that had gone to the Planning Commission, been denied, was then sent to the Alderman with some changes. The Alderman remanded it back to the Planning Commission to review the changes, and the planning commission eventually got to a place where they approved it as a PUD. It came before the Board of Aldermen. There was several people that spoke out against it. Now, the exact location of this place, some of y'all may not be familiar with it if you live in Hernando, but you go out McInvale, and when you kind of get to that Compel Church area, there's Milam Lane that comes off there, and just south of there's Thousand Oaks. And so there's a portion of land, it's about 49 acres of land that was looking to be changed to a planned urban development. So people that are in that area, and it also butts up to Forest Meadows neighborhood, and kind of there's like a little jut out there that Notting Hill kind of comes in. So all these neighborhoods kind of come together there's a creek that runs through there that people were affected
behind in there.
that people were a little affected by. So there's a lot going on there. And certainly there's a lot of, neighbors in opposition because they were worried about erosion and drainage, the traffic that would be going through their neighborhood. And ultimately it was approved with a 4-3 vote. And I know you and I were on the same page with this one because there was some concerns around some infrastructure-related things, how exactly construction traffic was going to get, in and out over time. Like initially, construction traffic's going to enter through McInvale, but once the roads are kind of in place and homes are kind of being built, the barricade, they're going to put concrete barricades at Milam and or Singletree and Keeneland West, and those will be removed once kind of some of that infrastructure is in place and constructions began. Yeah. And that was one of the concerns from a lot of neighbors was just how much construction traffic is going to be coming through here. Our roads going to get torn up, and while the developer promised, that you won't see any construction traffic there. Usually there ends up being some amount of construction traffic going through there.
Right. I mean, I voted against it as well. I mean, I think you probably could have got me to a yes once there were still some questions I had that, I think there's a lot of participation from the public at the meeting. I had several people get up and speak and for, some people for, but mostly against the development. And I had some questions about the traffic patterns of traffic in that area. Also, some of those lots I think are kind of small for that area, but I do want to think, I think the developer did try to work and did work with the neighbors to try to come to a compromise. And this development that was approved, even though I didn't vote for it, I think was a lot better than the original proposal that was put out there.
There were definitely some huge concessions that the developer made. Yeah. That can't be understated for sure. But your point, what's proper, what's right, is it similar to nearby areas? Not really. To the north and south of the development is mostly 1.5 acre plus lots. And while there were some of those, I think there was a handful of those, the vast majority is 15,000 square foot to 20,000 square foot lots, which are smaller than most of the lots in Forest Meadows. And so it just wasn't really the best fit in my opinion, but they certainly look like very nice homes that are going to be going in. I think minimum square footage is 2,400 square feet, so they are going to be, family homes, family style homes, and I'm sure they'll be done really nicely because the builder does a good job from everything I've been told, and the developer, somebody that's developed many subdivisions in DeSoto County, so I think they'll do a good job. But
and hopefully that they'll be able to purchase that one piece of property and get them the full access to McInvale in the future, and that really open up that area.
I think the greater question with a lot of this stuff came down to, and we get a lot of these questions sometimes, is like, well, what does MDEQ say, or what these larger state agencies or Army Corps of Engineers, and the city doesn't have a lot of say with MDEQ and the Army Corps of Engineers. They're their own agencies that they do their job and they send reports to the city to say this is a viable project or not, or it'll be a viable project if they do X, Y, and Z, but it's not necessarily something where the city alerts them to concerns that residents have necessarily. They will certainly hear you out. Like I would not, I wouldn't say that residents shouldn't reach out to those agencies. They should, if they have concerns, to understand the issues better that's going on with it, and to get get answers. You certainly want to be able to do that because your taxpayer dollars, fund these agencies. So you should have some amount of transparency and information from them.
I can't remember the lady's name, but she really had some concern about the drainage, and we went into pretty good detail about how that process works. And essentially, MDEQ will come look at a property, and they can't displace any more water than what they did originally from the site. So that's,
Right.
And then once they approve that, get the permit, they build the subdivision or the development. Then it's the city's responsibility to go back out there and make sure they built the what you call it, the pad, I believe, is what
Right.
pad to the certain level. And that in the past, I think the city has not done a good job with that. That's one of the reasons we hired a second engineer. I think that may have been.
Yep.
I think you were on that committee or whatever y'all had done.
Yep.
So we've really done a lot better job of doing that, and we will continue to do that in the future. So I think that's worth noting.
Well, I think that people in that area, anytime something's going to be changing, near your home, you're definitely concerned about it. And sometimes those fears are realized, and sometimes they never even come to fruition.
That's
so
right. That's right.
That's what's so tough about it is, hey, just leave everything alone, and we won't have to worry about this.
Yeah, we're going to talk in a little bit about a development that was initially approved in 2004. It still hasn't been built.
That's it.
So you never know. I mean, the economy may go south here in the next couple of months, and this never gets built out. So
the big thing with this one is that there are people who are already dealing with erosion and drainage concerns in that area, and they're concerned it's going to get worse, which is a possibility. Engineers say no, but I still feel like there's a chance. And that would just be something that the city has to really keep a close eye on. We have to make sure we hold people accountable for what they say they're going to do. That's what our job is from here on out. So we'll just try to do the best we can on that.
One thing, Ben, and I know this is your ward, but we, Mr. Bellflower invited everybody out to tour this site, and we walked around it from different sides. And one thing I didn't realize is how bad the ditch there behind, I guess that's Forest Meadows, had eroded. And so I can tell you, we've had a conversation within the city to, do our best to get some NCRS money to get that repaired, hopefully in the next cycle of money. So I think that would help those people there. But that's a long time coming. It should have been done in the past. So
it can be something that for with NRCS or EWP grants that the city pays 20% of the money and the federal government pays the other 80%. And there's a project going on right now between in that Thousand Oaks Mason Drive area. You've probably seen them where the old Evolve Learning Center is. They come in and remove trees and put in white rock to kind of help with the erosion and dirt loss and silt control and that kind of thing. But that would be something for that area that is being monitored and could potentially be a project in the future, just depending on what the size of it is and how we can budget for it. But
I think we budget $3 million a year for those projects, and that's the matching money. So, and I think we've gotten those projects over the last couple of years. What's the gentleman's name? Vince Malavasi helps us with those, the engineer. So
the next thing that we discussed after the Crestview rezoning was an amendment to the Madison Lakes PUD. This was, a massive, anybody that lives in this area, again, it's Ward 6, so Ward 6 on a heater in terms of, projects that are coming potentially. And again, this could be one that takes a very, very long time to come to fruition. But, there were a lot of people that were fairly, well read in on Madison Lakes, so we don't want to talk about it too much at length in terms of all this. But the timeline was basically this was something that was approved when it was still in the county. In 2004, there's been amendments and changes that have been made over the last 20 years to it. At one point there was some townhomes that were proposed in there. Those have all been taken out. The number of homes has gone anywhere from as many as 1,300. Now it's down to about 900, which is still a ton. That's a lot of houses. But what this amendment basically did was remove going from essentially a little over 1,000 homes to about 930 and replacing it with some commercial space, and then also giving up some residential lots to add a water tower to one of the corners of the property to provide water to the site and also increase our water capacity on this side of the city. So definitely some positive news for people that live on the east side of town as this water tower will take shape over the next year. Whether or not how quickly you will see this this, and it was approved unanimously because a lot of the people that have had concerns about it, spoke in favor of it at the meeting. But this will be something that probably is a long time coming. It's a massive development, a lot of money.
Yeah. So we're talking about on the east side of Hernando Hills Elementary School, that area on the other side of McInville. And the big change where they're essentially that whole area from Bahalia Road to Green Tea Road will be residential on that east side on McInville. Retail. So there will be retail area there for businesses, and I think they're going to start on the corner right there. Is going to be their first development. Again, we've talked about this over and over. The big holdup there was always the water, so we finally are in the process of getting the water to that location. So you probably will see some development there. Again, no opposition from the public. I think the developer has done a really good job of working with the local people. There's some nice subdivisions in that area, around that area, who had some initial concerns, who is now, all those issues have been addressed. And but again, we keep adding. How many houses is that right there? Over 1,000 houses and 2 different planning agenda items, and so it's just more growth. So
it is, and it's it's something that it's hard to know when it will happen because of the uncertainty around the economy right now.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of money on the sidelines because it is a presidential election year, and people are wanting to see, who's in control of the White House and who's in control of these, how everything shakes out. And they're going to say, well, now I've got a lot of confidence. Like, I'm good with investing millions of dollars into a commercial development. Or they say, look, I don't know how things are going to, I'm not real comfortable with this. I might just hold on to my money for now and, put it somewhere else. So it's kind of a wait and see thing. But, for anybody that has anxiety over these larger developments that are kind of slowly moving forward, there are probably at least 3 that I can think of that are really large development that have just been sitting out there for a very long time.
Yeah, we talked about Delta Landing, I think, in the last couple of shows ago. That's another, hundreds of homes there. We just talked about the one in Crestview. This project here, 3 or 4 meetings ago, we had the issue with the hotels a little further down from this project. Hernando is growing. I think just recently we were talking about all the ribbon cuttings we're having. So we're in a growing area. It's people want to be in Hernando. I think a lot of it has to do with the new school coming. Mm-hmm. So
another part of it is that I think that what people will see over time, certainly more people, more traffic, all that kind of thing, but where some of these things are located, people are going to be getting on I-269. Like that's going to be their main mode of like going to work on a daily basis. And depending on how quickly this commercial development comes along in that corridor, this may not add a lot of traffic to Commerce Street.
Well,
it may add some.
Was it you saying, or maybe somebody said that Commerce is full? There's no more. There's no more businesses. There's not a room. There's maybe one more space on Commerce for something to come, and so we've got to get we got to get some more areas of the city with that traffic count to get those Chick-fil-A's and Raising Cane's and things like that. I know you're a big Raising Cane's guy. And so this is, if this ever gets developed out, but this has the potential to be something just like Commerce Street as far as having businesses there, fast food restaurants, maybe some nice sit-down restaurants, things like that, that I think so many of our residents desperately want and need. I think we need, I love Mexican too, but, the joke is why do we have so many Mexican restaurants?
Right.
And so this is a potential development that maybe 3-5 years from now, there's a Chick-fil-A there or whatever the restaurant of choice is right there. So
and a lot of times in the meetings I ask about timeline.
Yeah.
What's your timeline for construction, right? And in a lot of these cases, people are talking, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 15 years. So it's not something that immediately happens. If you have, if you're like me and you have a young child that's 6 years old, they may not even see these developments completely come to fruition like in their childhood. You know what I mean? They might.
They might be driving there.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that, yes, over time, I think there's going to be some changes. and we'd have to continue to think strategically in how the city's growing, and not necessarily look at changing Commerce Street as like being that older part of town. Like, let's protect the square, let's protect Commerce Street and the small businesses that are on it. When there's new people moving to the area, have commercial development near them so that it becomes kind of these new commercial centers or these new commercial districts within the city, not necessarily a center, but a district of the city where those people can kind of live, work, and play.
Yeah. Well, you have the McInville corridor and the Getwell corridor that are just prime for, retail, commercial development.
Mm-hmm.
And so finding the right fit for that is something that I guess as a board and as a city, we're going to have to really fight to make sure we get the right fit there. And I think we have done that in the past, and we continue to do that. And it's we talk about good problems or whatever. It's another good problem to have to approve, residential developments at every board meeting, So.
And you want to, I think the safeguards because people ask me this, how large are the homes going to be, because they're worried about really small lots with really small homes on them, or homes that are piled up right on top of each other. It's not always necessarily the size of the home, but it's also the type of building standards that are required to build the home.
That's right.
So, is it a pre-engineered home that's allowed, or is the pitch of the roof, is it to a point where you couldn't have anything pre-engineered with it, and then it's almost like a custom home or a custom build home?
Right, yeah.
That's kind of what
I think they call them spec homes or whatever.
Yeah, and so that's those are the things that we're really looking at when we get these massive packets of information from these developments. That's like the granular little details that we're looking at that say, well, yeah, these are 2,000 square foot or 2,300 or 2,400, but also these are the building standards that we're going to have people adhere to. Okay, well, we know that they're not just going to be slapped together in 6 months and put out there for sale. It's going to take years for this to kind of slowly develop out.
That's right.
So that's that. Hopefully that, and we can say everything we want to, and there still be people upset about it, and that's how it is. But
well, again, I'd rather be voting to build houses than to tear houses down.
Yeah.
So
well put.
Like I said, I went to the Yazoo City Hospital for my arm, and they would love to have,
Sure.
a 10 development residential subdivision being
Right.
put in their area. So
Right. We also had, one little thing that we looked at. If you're ever driving around town and you say, like, man, there just seems to be trash behind these, restaurants.
my gym's they're very bad at this. They leave their dumpsters open.
You ever cut behind Mr. Chin's?
Yeah.
That shopping center right there. Sometimes the dumpsters are overflowing or anything like that. So we're asking now, and we're putting into our code requirements and these sort of things that dumpsters have to be enclosed if they're not being, actively loaded or unloaded. They have to have some kind of enclosure around them to kind of keep that stuff under control, and that you don't have trash necessarily laying around these dumpsters as well. So just something that's really small. Sometimes the little small things like this really add up for folks.
Yeah,
So,
what has happened is when the city adopted the design codes, I don't know when that was, 2008 or something. They required new business to have an enclosed dumpster if they meet a certain square footage and so forth, and so that's why you see the ones like behind the club, that little shopping center there is one. Mi Pueblo and those places have one. But what's happening is it's an enclosure, and they're leaving the gates of the enclosure open so you can see the dumpster, right?
Right.
Because people are lazy, humans are lazy. It's easier to leave the gates open just of the trash instead of having to take all the trash
You're in a
out
hurry.
there.
It's a busy night at the restaurant. You're hurrying and doing your thing.
This is requiring them to close the gates, and if they don't close the gates, they could receive a code violation or whatever. So
It's come along. I tell you, a lot of this stuff is really, it's meant for public health and safety, obviously, right? Like that's probably the biggest thing with it. And so some of these things do seem like why is local government necessarily involved with it? And that's really the reason. It's because you had people that, they're trying to drive.
All these communists on the board, man.
They're trying to drive in these little areas, and then sometimes these dumpster doors are open, and people's cars have hit them, or whatever else, because they're swinging around in the wind or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Just close them up, and hopefully, I think businesses will, it'll take one visit from code enforcement just saying, hey, we got this new rule, and then it's we hopefully see some improvement there. But that was the big things that really
that was a 3-hour meeting because of Crestview.
Yes, it was.
It was great. I mean, that's great that people have the opportunity to come to a public meeting and say their piece, and that's what makes our government work so well. Is it's a government of the people, and they have the ability to say what they want to say.
And I think that one will continue to be one. When it comes back up for final plat approval, and if there's ever any kind of amendments to it or anything else, people are going to show up. And
well, I'll be honest, Ben,
concerns.
I think I told you this either after the meeting or whatever. I was generally on the fence about that development and listening to some of the people and some of the concerns they raised. They made some very strong points, and so it kind of made my decision listening to some of those people at the meeting. So I appreciate they were able to come and do that.
It's always important to stay involved, folks, and we're that's why we have open meetings, and we try to be as transparent as possible. This podcast is about transparency.
That's right.
You may be listening to it to help you go to sleep at night. We just never know. But I think we've had one listener tell us that before.
That's right.
But what this podcast is about transparency. If you don't have 3 hours to sit through and watch the entire YouTube live streaming of our meetings, you can come here, listen to the Boardroom podcast, and in about 30, 40 minutes, we talk through our own personal lives, which you can always fast forward through that if that's not of interest to you, and to get to the meeting stuff. But you kind of hit the high points of the meeting, because sometimes there are little things that sometimes don't take a whole lot of conversation, and there's just little little small pieces of information. But we try to give you as much information as we can and talk through these things, talk through votes and whatnot. But
and we have a Facebook page. If you want to make it interactive, you ever have a question about anything or want us to talk about something on the meeting, please reach out to us at the Boardroom podcast on Facebook. So
there you have it.
We got anything else, Ben?
I think that's it for right now. Summer soccer just started. We just had our first practice. Summer soccer, 5-on-5.
Y'all are into it, man.
5-on-5 soccer. If you go out to the soccer complex, you'll notice something new. There has been LED parking lot lighting and LED lighting added to the fields behind the concession stand. So that complex has really come a long way in the last few years. Definitely appreciate Jared Barkley's leadership in the Parks Department. We need to get him back on. We need to get him back on the podcast sometime.
Talk about some of the updates.
Some of the things going on, because there are some things going on with Renaissance Park, things at the soccer complex and Kirkendall Park. So we're going to try to get Jared on. If he's listening, get ready. But for now, this is the Boardroom Podcast. I'm Ben Piper.
And I'm Chad Wicker. Thanks for listening.